Hey collectors, welcome to Star Wars Collected. I'm Jonathan. If you're new here, I hope you consider sticking around and subscribing. But if you've been here before, I want you to dent that like button like you're denting your helmet, because what we're going to talk about today is a company called Xcoser. They make a lot of helmets. You've maybe even seen them on eBay or Amazon, something like that. We're going to walk through a lot of the cons to them, but I'm also going to show you two that I have in my collection that I think are pretty okay. Collectors, there is a company out there that I think is called Xcoser. It's spelled Xcoser. Little Sesame Street lesson here for you. And they are a helmet making company that seems to use a lot of PVC, and we see them pop up a lot. If you guys are active on any of the Facebook groups, any of the forums, anything like that, you're going to see people, especially people who are new to collecting, posting these photos. A lot of times there are Amazon links or eBay links of these helmets that they find. And man, they're so excited because they have a ton of variety. They have all different kinds of clone troopers and stormtroopers and all these different things. And they are very inexpensive. A lot of times around $120, sometimes south of that. So people get really excited because they kind of feel like they found something that's kind of like a Black Series helmet, but with a whole lot more variety. And we've seen these things get purchased and come in. Even if the photo initially didn't kind of dissuade you from buying it, maybe once you've actually seen it, and some of them are just so bad. So this video is a little bit about the ones not to buy, but then I actually have a couple of those in my collection that I actually think are worth it, and I'll show you guys those today. One of the main things that I see them get wrong a lot are proportions. And you can see, especially with the clone troopers, that the front area is just a little bit too big. These are extremely iconic silhouettes for us. We know what they look like. We know down to the point of whether it was the New Hope version, the Empire Strikes Back version, whether it was the Clone Wars animation version or the real life version. We can tell the difference. And a lot of these helmets, they just have the proportions wrong. So as exciting as it might be to find these relatively inexpensive helmets with all these different paint jobs, it's super tempting to just be like, this is where I'm going to buy my helmets from. But when you get them in person, a lot of times you're going to find they are misshapen. They kind of use this like PVC material a lot of times, which is not as hard plastic as what you might be used to if you're used to the Hasbro Black Series. So you're probably not going to be super in love with the shape of them. And a lot of times the detail is somewhat carved in, which is really odd. I don't know if this is what helps them paint on them at the factories or something like that, but a lot of the details that are not supposed to be etched into them are etched into them. So you're gonna find things that are like Imperial cogs that have been etched into them. You're gonna find if there's been some sort of custom paint job put onto the clone's helmet that is gonna be etched in, and that's just not how it's done. So even though it's super tempting to see them, they are probably gonna be a big disappointment for you. Now, I'm a big advocate of collect what you love. So if you buy these and those little inaccuracies, those don't bother you whatsoever, go ahead and buy them. They are gonna make you really happy then. But I do have my collection that I wanna show you guys. This is from Xcoser, and there are a couple times where I think they do an okay job. This actually came with a little face mask, balaclava. And so this is going to be Fennec Shan's helmet. Now, this piece actually does not have that sort of warpy plastic feel that I'm used to seeing from theirs. And overall the paint job isn't bad. There is sort of this little like almost diamondy pattern here where it is not super smooth. There's a little bit of weathering around the outside edge. The color looks to be fairly accurate. It's somewhere between orange and red, I think, in real life. There are some issues here, little pits and things like that, where it is not perfect. And this also has a visor in here, a plastic visor, which is kind of a cool little detail that they added, but it's technically screen inaccurate. So they actually should have removed this part. And one can do that. You can tell just pushing on it that you can do that. Inside, there is actually a little bit of pad and foam inside of here, and you can kind of see part of their process here. It's pretty raw on the inside. So I'm not exactly sure how this one was made. Also, this is kind of one of the other main drawbacks to them. On the back here is their logo, which is this big X and then the word Coser underneath that. I don't know what that means. I'm not exactly sure even how you pronounce it. But what helps this one, I think, a little bit is, for me, Fennec Shan is not some like super iconic character, at least not yet. So do I want to invest $300, $400 in a really good Fennec Shan helmet? Not particularly. Do I want a representation of her in my collection? Sure. This one I think I got from Amazon for like around $50. It was extremely inexpensive. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, there are lots of issues with it, the little areas where things have kind of gotten stuck in the mold and stuff like that. But $50 for something like this, painted, all ready to go, You know, by the time I would 3D print something like this and go through the finishing process and then paint it and all that stuff, you know, I would probably end up at about this same level of finish, and it would have cost me about the same amount of dollars and a whole lot more of my time. So, you know, for something like this, I think the Phoenix Shan helmet is a pretty good buy, especially if you could get it anywhere near the price that I did. It feels pretty sturdy, has good color, and I think once you put that on a helmet stand, it's gonna present pretty well. My second helmet is my least favorite one of my Xcoser 2. This is from The Last Jedi. It is from the Praetorian Guard, you know, a fairly iconic scene in that movie. It is not anywhere near as good. Mine has a small crack in it actually, which I think is from a little tumble that it took at one point, but it is okay. It does sort of have that soft plastic feel, but this is a piece which I think would be particularly difficult to make myself. If I was going to do a 3D printing, the idea of trying to get all of these sort of ground out or not is a pretty insane thought. I think this piece has a little bit of warpage if you look at it straight on. It is sort of not perfect, and the underside here is very unfinished. So it is a mediocre helmet, but there were not a ton of options when looking for this kind of helmet, unless you wanted to go with something like a Novos, which I don't even know if those ever got delivered. Those may be now getting delivered through Denuo Novo, and those were and are very expensive for what this is. Now, I would love to have all three versions of it because I'm very much a completionist, but this is the only version that I'm aware that they've ever made. There is another version that you can buy of one of the other guards, not from Xcoser. It has a front piece and a back piece, a little ridge going around, very much a Halloween costume type thing that doesn't quite live up to it. So this piece overall, I would give this a half endorsement. I would say that if you have been dying to add this to your collection and you can still find it, that this is an okay helmet if you can get it for under $100. There you have it. Those are my thoughts on the company Xcoser and their products. I have two of their helmets. I think one is pretty okay. The other one, there's not a lot of options out there, so I'm glad that they filled that option for me. Let me know down in the comments, do you think I was too harsh on them? Is it something that you've purchased from before? Do you think that they're any good? Guys, if you haven't already, make sure you're following me on Instagram. It's a place where you and I can connect a little bit more directly. And if you are into things like helmets, if you're into one-to-one props, if you're into statues, something like that, this is the place to be. Make sure you subscribe. These are just two helmets of about 100 some odd I have, and I think some of my next videos are going to be about some big helmet hauls because I probably have about a dozen or so I haven't showed you guys. So looking forward to that. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, make sure you subscribe. Otherwise, guys, I'll see you on the next one.